What's going on, everybody? It's Ricky with Video Homicide, back with my thoughts on the 2022 film, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So I'm going to be talking about this film as if you, the viewer, have already seen it. So this is going to be filled with spoilers. I'm not going to be really giving a huge synopsis on the film. Just I want to talk about some of my favorite parts of the movie. So was I impressed with the film? I thought it was much better than the Texas Chainsaw 3D and that Leatherface film that came out a few years ago, although I really would like to revisit that Leatherface film because I remember when I first watched it, I did not like it at all, but I feel like I need to give it another go because for me, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is one of my favorite horror films of all time. I think it's one of the best titled films ever. Even in the film Taxi Driver, which I've been obsessed with recently, you see in one of the marquees on the cinema that it says Texas Chainsaw Massacre playing. So that is just, it's a really good 1970s exploitation grindhouse classic. Now, it spawned many sequels and, spawned a few reboots in its day. And I'll be the first to admit that I'm not the biggest fan of Texas Chainsaw number 2 or 3 or 4. I do really like the remake with Jessica Biel. I really like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the beginning, which is actually my favorite of the Chainsaw films. And that's basically all in part owed to, it's all owed to R. Lee Ermey, who I think is a fantastic actor. Love his delivery. I love his character, Sheriff Hoyt. I'm glad that, that he really nailed his name or, chiseled his name into the horror history books, because his performance in those two films it was so scary, so spooky, and really helped ground the film in reality. A lot of these horror films that we're obsessed with and we watch, there's a lot of supernatural elements happening, and sometimes you forget how good a non-supernatural horror film is, and that's what I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre is. Now, in terms of this new movie, the characters in the film, I couldn't get behind them. They were that woke, super Generation Z, Generation Z mentality. Like, even when there's this guy comes along in a truck and he's got a gun, they're in the middle of Texas. Like, it'd be weird if he didn't have a gun. And the girl's like, oh, like how small is your dick that you have to walk around with like a gun or something like that. And like, it's just, to me, like, they're in the gas pump beside them. So first of all, I don't think that line, anyone would ever say anything like that to a guy with a fucking gun. And they have like that kind of back and forth, and that really establishes, to me, it established who that one main girl was. Like the girl that looked like the dude from Hereditary. That's the only, like, I kept thinking that throughout the whole viewing of the movie. And she was the character I liked the least. And she was right and tied with, her sister, who was the girl that was like the survivor of a school shooting, which, I mean, didn't really pay off that much, that good for me anyway. Like, there's a scene early on in the film where she goes and visits that douchebag with the gun because he happened to be their contact in this small town, and she's like handling the gun, and then she like hears it like click, and then she drops it, but then I knew that was going to come back somehow, but to me it was just sort of like didn't really need to be there. Like, and she like played with the scar on her chest a few times, and I thought, like, who gives a fuck? Like, that does not need to be in there. I'm not downplaying on the seriousness of those types of situations, but I just thought it was whack and weak. And even the whole idea of why they're there pissed me off. It's like a group of like these four, basically fresh out of college kids driving around in a Tesla. They have all the properties to this small town somehow, and they're having all these potential investors come in and check it out, which leads to like all of them being killed in a ridiculous way. Like, in parts of this film really did feel like a Friday the 13th type of film. It didn't really feel like a Chainsaw movie in certain parts, but I did like the setting of this little small westerny kind of hick town that was once thriving and is now closed down. There's like a movie theater, a garage, which is like the only thing that's still working, and like the guy that was driving the truck that owns the garage, he's like working away on his car like late into the night, and I always find that hilarious. But I really want to talk about some of the scenes that stuck out to me. Now, why they're there, and even like the one dude, like the black guy who's like sort of running the show, like he's sort of like a throwaway character. He's got a decent death scene that kind of happens twice. Like, spoiler alert, like I said, hopefully you've seen the film, but I love the effect on his face where it was all slashed open, and like that scene sort of really where he gets cut in the face is really reminiscent of the original Chainsaw Massacre with the sliding door, which is very iconic. Although, I don't know why I thought this, but that scene to me with the door looked CG. It didn't, it looked like, it had a weird look to it to me. But nonetheless, I took some notes throughout the film. I had to. It's a short flick, an hour and 23. There is a post-credit scene, which is pretty cool. I liked it, how it's like Leatherface like walking towards the house from the original film. Also, Sally Hardesty, who was played by Marilyn Burns. Her character returns, but it's not Marilyn Burns because she's passed away. And she looks like way older than the Leatherface dude did. Like super old. So Leatherface must have just been like, you know, younger than them or something, because Marilyn Burns' character, or the Sally Hardesty character, looks very, like, just fucking ancient, man. Let me get to my notes here real quick. Because also, the story was put together by the guys that did the Evil Dead remake, which I think is a pretty solid remake, but I have probably the same complaints. The characters are just too unlikable. You know, I need at least like one good likable character, and to me, the only likable character was the asshole with the garage and the gun, and he doesn't even last that long. I'm gonna go ahead and get my notes up. So the first thing I took down was the snapped wrist and stabbed. So what I mean by that is there's a scene where Leatherface is in the back of this police van, and there's a cop in the back there with him, and he's like sticking his hand out, and Leatherface like snaps his wrist, and there's bone sticking out, and then he uses the bone sticking out of the wrist to stab the guy to death. And I thought that was really hardcore and really cool looking, and just like sort of a different type of, way to kill someone. Because how many times have we seen that situation where the bad guy is in the back of a van or in the back of a truck, and then he comes to, and then shit hits the fan. So I thought it was pretty cool to see that. This part, one of the parts that made me kind of cringe was Leatherface comes on board this bus, which is sort of like a party bus in a way. They're having like a huge party on it, and everyone pulls out their phone and starts filming him. And the one guy, he says, "Try anything and we'll get you canceled." I shook my head, and I was like, man, like, why the fuck did they have to do that? It totally, it's almost like if there was a trend on like Instagram where, everyone was doing something, like if it was popular at the time of them filming this video, I bet I wouldn't have been surprised had they thrown something like that in there. And the canceled line to me was just horrendous. But I did like the bus slaughter where Leatherface is killing all these people on this bus. It was pretty cool looking. Lots of CG stuff happening throughout, but what do you expect? It did kind of take me away from it being a chainsaw film, because like when I was watching it, I'm like, wow, this is like some shit Jason Voorhees would do in the Friday the 13th film. But like, that's not totally a bad thing, because you're there to see the gore and stuff. But again, a likable character would have been nice. Oh my god. So one of the most hilarious things in this movie to me was when Leatherface is being chased by the one girl that was the school shooter survivor, and somehow they're in this, or for some reason there's this big fucking gaping opening in the middle of this abandoned movie theater where there's this huge body of water, or like little pool kind of area thing, and they have a fight where they end up in there, and then the girl gets out, and then the guy, or Leatherface, jumps out of the water. I even wrote this down. Came out of the water like the shark from Deep Blue Sea. So like the shark that killed Samuel Jackson, that was like Leatherface, like came out of the water that quick. And I don't know, I just feel like a guy that's supposed to be like 70 is not gonna jump out of the water like that, and he's not gonna look as young as he did. But that's besides the point. Like, this is a goofy, it's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's not, fucking some crazy art house cinema. It's not like an Akira Kurosawa film or, a Scorsese flick. Like, this is just some run-of-the-mill, forget about it next week kind of movie. At least that's the way I look at it. I'm not going to be buying this on DVD to fucking put on my wall to complete my Chainsaw collection, because as far as I'm concerned, my Chainsaw collection is complete with part 1, the beginning, the remake with Jessica Biel, and part 2, which I don't even really, if I never watched part 2 again, my life would be the same. I don't think it's that great of a film. I do like You know, I saw it in theater on 35, which was great. Saw it with my brother and my cousin, and we actually saw the first Chainsaw that night as well, and along with some fucking fantastic trailers. But my final note that I really wrote down here was there's a good final shot of Leatherface holding up the head. So I feel like they've done this so many times. You know, characters in the car, and then Leatherface rips them out of the car. I think it was best done in the beginning with the meat hook. Thought that was really badass, you know, and even at the beginning, or at the end of, I think it was the one with Jessica Biel. No, I think it was the second one with Jordana Brewster. I believe that's her name. She gets killed in the back of the car. But anyways, there's a shot where Leatherface is like standing there, like holding the head. Like you see like the whole decapitation, he's still holding the head. I thought that was a really cool, spooky image to end the film with. And, you know, then our school survivor survivor chick rides off into the sunset on autopilot in her fucking Tesla. So that's the new Chainsaw Massacre movie. Was it great? No. Was it horrible? Of course not. It was decent enough to watch. It's so short that, you know, you could probably, like, when I watched it, that's one thing about the film. It flowed well. Definitely flowed well. It didn't feel like, you know, there was no scenes that dragged on or anything like that. To me, there was just unlikable characters. And, you know, again, like, will I watch the movie again? Probably not. You know, maybe the only reason I would watch this movie again is to, like, show it to my dad, you know, because he doesn't have Netflix or whatever. But yeah, let me know if you guys watched the film and if you liked it, what you thought about it, if you thought there was any really killer spots or really shitty spots in the film. Leave a comment and we'll elaborate that on a little later, because I plan on you know, watching some more new stuff and talking about it, because I just want to see, I want to wet my feet or wet my beak into the new cinema realm, because I haven't watched any new stuff really in a while. Like the last new film that I watched was like Candyman and Malignant, and now this. And, you know, again, it wasn't dog shit, but it was so far from fantastic. Good kills, shitty characters, that's about it. So with that being said, I appreciate everybody for watching. Leave a 666 in the comments, and I will see you in the next video. Adios, amigos.